Hey, how's it going everybody? Jason here, and in this video I want to show you 3 different ways that you can be creative with typography. Now there are endless ways to be creative with typography, but in this video we are going to be focusing on the work of Reid Miles. Before we get started, please make sure you are subscribed to support the channel. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to look at is how to do an envelope distort. Now the key to doing something like this is to make sure that you have a very legible font to start with. And what we're going to do is lay down a shape, and we're going to lay down the type, and we're going to mesh both of them together using envelope distort. So I'm going to select this, and we're going to bring this down to 50% opacity, and then we're just going to lock that layer. It makes everything a lot easier to work with when you're not worried about accidentally picking up something. So I'm going to hit the N key on my keyboard, and that's going to bring up our pencil tool. I'm going to double click on that, and we're going to change the fidelity all the way over here to smooth. And we're going to hit OK. I'm going to swap the fill and the stroke, but I need to double click on this and make sure that the stroke is black, just so we can see it a lot easier. All right, so what I'm going to do is just kind of freehand draw over this basic shape. We don't need to get it exactly correct, because we don't really have to worry about creating this exactly the way it is, because what we can do is once we're done with this and once we get the type in there, we can actually adjust it. And then I'm going to bring it down right here, and we're going to kind of come over this. Like I said before, it's not crucial that we get it exactly the same path here. The whole idea really is for you to get the general idea of how to do this. Okay, so now we're done with that artwork. I'm going to click on Unlock All, and we're just going to grab this artwork and just drag it right off here. We don't really need that. And here's our basic shape. So this is the shape that we're going to be using to do our envelope distort. And we might as well just use the same wording that's on here. The font that I'm using is called Franklin Extra Condensed Gothic. I believe it's on Adobe Fonts, but it should be fairly easy to get that. If you don't have access to it, then download Oswald from Google Fonts. And now let's select the Lee Morgan right there. I'm not going to worry about matching the color exactly. I'm just going to make it red. And now what we're going to do is grab this shape right here, and we're going to go up to Object, Arrange, and Bring to Front. Because when we make an envelope distort, the object that we're actually making it into has to be at the front. So now we're going to select both of these, and let's go over here to Object, Envelope Distort, and Make with Top Object. And as you can see, it's a bit of a mess. We can't read it at all. So let's go ahead and grab this and move this to the center, make it easier to work with. And we want to go up here to Envelope Top, and we've got Edit Envelope and Edit Contents. You want to make sure that Edit Envelope is selected because we don't have to worry about editing the contents. We need to edit the envelope itself to make this more legible. So what we're going to do is switch over to our Direct Select tool, and we're just going to select these anchor points and adjust them. And as you can see, as we move those around, we can just kind of bring back some of those areas of the envelope to make sure that we can adjust the type in such a way that it makes it legible. And you can also pull on these handles to kind of adjust that. Just keep in mind that as you're adjusting the handles, the artwork itself won't update in real time. That only happens if you adjust the anchor points themselves. Adobe, if it's any way possible to change it to where the artwork updates when we change the handles, that would be amazing. We've got a little bit of funkiness going on here in the O area, so let's just adjust this handle right here. We can have a little bit of distortion, but it's just a little bit too much. And now let's pull this handle right here. And as you can see, we're kind of getting into some areas where we're getting some trouble reading that M right in here, but overall you get the idea. We just go in there and edit those anchor points and pull those handles until we get to the point that this is legible and it's looking really cool. All right, next up is a very simple way to just kind of add a little bit of extra spice to your typography, and all that we've got here is just the word unity, and just adding a couple of circles in here, it really does make a big difference. So let's bring down the typography, lock it one more time, and for this font, it is definitely using something that's a little bit on the wider side. So I will go with Enter Extra Bold. And just like before, I'm not too worried about recreating it exactly. It's more of just kind of showing you how to go about doing something like this. Let's scale this to where it's the same size, and we'll duplicate that down there. All right, now that we got the letters on the page, I'm going to go ahead and select everything. We're going to create outlines and then ungroup, and then we can just move these individual letters. And let's go ahead and stretch this, might as well. It's not like this is a paid project or anything, I'm just directly recreating something for educational purposes. And this is an interesting visual right here. We've got the T and the Y coming together to form unity. And what we want to do here is kind of bring those to where they're actually united together. And now what we can do is select all of the black text right here, go over here to Pathfinder and click on Unite. So now this is all one united shape. It's not grouped together. That's a completely different thing. Grouping is just a grouping of objects, and you can always ungroup them later, but uniting something with a Pathfinder actually unites everything together in one continuous path. So if you were to group the T and the Y together, they technically wouldn't be united together. You could still go in and select those individual elements, but if you unite something together, let's go ahead and switch to outline view so you can actually see this. If it were not united together, we would see a line right here where that T actually ends and the Y begins. So hopefully that helps you to understand uniting and grouping just a little bit easier. And obviously this word unity is already doing something clever in the way that it's presented. It's obviously broken up into two different lines, but just adding those circles in there makes a really big difference. So let's grab our ellipse tool by hitting L on our keyboard, and we're just gonna go right here and just directly recreate these circles. So let's zoom in and get a better view here. And I'm gonna hold down Option or Alt on Windows and just duplicate these down. And something as simple as that can really go a long way. So let's select all of these, and why not, let's go ahead and use our eyedropper tool and come over here and grab this red. So now we've got that matching that right there. And if we want, we can actually send those circles to the back by grabbing Unity and bringing it to the front. So let's go up here to Object, Arrange, and Bring to Front. So that way it covers up those circles right there. And then it's not in the original artwork, but the Y itself can be kind of seen as a container as well. So why not create a couple of extra circles right here? Since there's 4 over there, let's make 3 over here just to kind of make it a little bit more interesting. Always remember the power of asymmetry. So not only using an odd number of items, but also the fact that these are not spaced out evenly. We've got the amount of spacing right here between these two elements, and then we've got an even larger amount of space in between these two elements. There's something about asymmetry that just brings our attention to it immediately. We notice that something is off, and yet our brains are totally fine with it. All right, here's the last example that we'll use, and I just realized that all 3 of these are red and black. Reid Miles definitely did a lot more with colors than just red, black, and white, but these are really cool examples of how he implemented typography in his work. Okay, so we're gonna grab this, bring the opacity down to 50% one more time. We are going to recreate these little bars right here, and you'll notice that these are actually not straight lines, or at least they're not in terms of this image being presented in Illustrator, but I don't believe the original image itself is actually a straight line. So what we're gonna do is just gonna use red for now, and let's go over here to the top and swap over to our direct select tool, and we're just gonna select those 2 anchor points at the top, and we're just gonna bring this over just like this. And now this is much more in line with the alignment of each of those bars. All right, and there are a lot of different ways to do what I'm about to do right here, but I'm actually just gonna do this manually just to make sure that we get it recreated exactly, and I'll speed up this part of the process. All right, so there we go. We've manually recreated each one of these bars right here. And what's cool about this is how this is, you know what, let me swap this over to black. It'll be a little bit easier on the eyes for me. So what we've got here is we've got all these different shapes and everything, and the type itself is actually forming to each one of those shapes. And so that's a really cool way to be creative with your typography, is to create different shapes and let each one of those individual letters actually bend kind of around those shapes. So let's go ahead and recreate this. And what we've got here is a slab serif font that's a little bit on the taller side. So it would be something that is condensed. And let's grab maybe this one right here. That's a really good replacement for something like this. And it's already bold, and we may have to just kind of rearrange each one of these a little bit after we create outlines. And let's not forget that exclamation point that's right there. Okay, so once you have this typed out, we'll do exactly what we did before. We're gonna do create outlines and ungroup everything. And what we're gonna do in this case is I'm gonna do each one of these individually. So let's anchor this like to the bottom left. That's typically what I like to do. And then just kind of scale it just like this to where we are matching the original type here. And then in this case, it's actually a little bit on the taller side for this. So what we're gonna do is grab our direct select tool, and let's go ahead and just make a selection over these anchor points. And now we can just move this down just like that. you want to make sure that when you're doing that with your direct select tool, that you're not going into areas that are going to mess up any type of curves. Because in a situation like that, you would need to also grab the anchor points that are adjusting the curves, and you'll need to adjust those after you adjust the straight points. All right, let's go ahead and bring this down so it's a little bit easier to work with and we're not traveling so much. Okay, anchor this to the bottom left just like we did earlier, and just kind of adjust the lettering right here. One thing you can do when you're doing something like this is to temporarily swap the fill and the stroke, so that way you can see if you're getting it lined up exactly with the original letters. All right, now let's bring this right here. For something like this, I would go top left instead of bottom left, so that way we go exactly where it is aligned for the original letter. The T is looking pretty darn close already. I don't think we'll need to do hardly any adjustments there. And then let's adjust the I. And let's say you're in a situation like this with a lowercase I and you need to adjust that I. If you use the direct select tool and try to draw over that, it's going to grab the rest of the I with it. So what you'll do in that case is select the I, go over here to your Pathfinder and click on divide. So now with your direct select tool, you can go over here and move just the dot by itself. Okay, now we have an N right here. So let's adjust that to there. And then let's grab our apostrophe. I don't want to distort this too much, but we can do something kind of like that. And now let's grab our exclamation point, and we'll do the same thing that we did with our lowercase I. Just kind of bring it down like that. And now let's grab our exclamation point. We're going to align the dot with that square. And then we'll do the same thing that we did with our lowercase I. Go over here to the divide tool. And now I'm going to select just those two bottom anchor points and bring it down to right there. All right, now let's go to Object, Unlock All. Move this over here. We can bring it back up to 100% if you want to. Now let's select all of that type right there. And we'll go over here to our eyedropper tool and make that same red. And now I'll bring this into Photoshop and show you how to do that masking with the image. All right, I found this image on Unsplash, so we'll use that one. All right, now what I'm gonna do is select all of this artwork and hit copy. And let's paste this, and we're gonna paste it as a smart object and hit OK. And we're gonna scale this up probably around here. And now what we want to do is separate these two layers because the image is going to be masked inside of those black bars and not inside of the red type. So we're going to go over here to our Vector Smart Object layer, double click on that, and that's going to bring us back into Illustrator. And now I'm going to select just the type, and I'm going to hit cut, which is actually going to put it onto our clipboard, which is where we need it because we need to paste it back in. So let's go back here to Photoshop. We haven't updated this yet. So we're just going to paste this into Photoshop and just adjust it exactly where it needs to go. And now we can go back into Illustrator and hit save and go back into Photoshop. And now that's adjusted our black bars. So let's just kind of adjust that. Just kind of eyeball it. Doesn't have to be exactly perfect. Okay, now what we want to do is actually mask the image inside of those black bars. So we have to grab the image and put it above the black bars. So now in the Layers panel, we're going to select our image and our bars, and we're going to hold down Option or Alt in between those two layers and just click. And so that masks the image inside of those bars. So now we can grab the image and just kind of adjust that right there, however you want to do it. And if you look at the original artwork, we actually have a red overlay going here, and I'll show you exactly how to do that too. So with our image layer selected, we're going to go down here to our adjustment layers, and we're going to click on Gradient Map. And let's go up here to the Properties and edit our gradient. We're going to double click on this. We're going to go up here and change this to red. And then double click here and change this to not entirely black, but we need to do something like maybe 10% black. And as you can see, our colors are reversed, but we can reverse this right here in the Properties panel. So we click on Reverse right there. And now we go over here to our gradient map and go over here to the Properties panel. And we're going to click on this little icon right here. And what that does is it only affects the image below it. Now, if the subject in this photo had been standing up against a black background, then we would see that reflected through the gradient map, but because it's a lighter background, we're seeing the lightness instead of the darkness there. I hope this video was inspiring to you, and I hope you can take these techniques and just kind of apply them to your own typography. Hopefully I got you thinking. Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you're subscribed to support the channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.